So, we have landed at India 1, north of Banpa. We have already checked our objectives, done our best to determine where we need to go. In this case, I have a general idea of where I probably should be looking. But in this case, it's going to be a almost house-to-house search. And that's where Banpa is its most deadly. A lot of people talk about how gnarly fighting in this area is. And really it all comes down to the fact that you have multiple elevations, sure. You have some long sight lines, sure, but you also have some really tight ones. And within those tight sight lines, you have to understand that there are very few pieces of cover in that area that are actually cover. Now, this is an important time to talk about cover versus concealment. When we're talking about cover versus concealment, I mean, this is an excellent example here. This is cover versus any one of those freaking bushes or pieces of vegetation out in the field. I can go into concealment, bushes. I can even I can crouch. I can even prone out, and that's concealment. But none of these is going to stop a bullet, right? Works better on humans than it does on AI. Humans never going to notice you here, but if an AI even gets a sense that you were here, or you shot at them, or they noticed you, they're just going to start opening up on that area, and they seem to be far more accurate when it comes to that than humans do. But as far as the principles of concealment, that's the idea. Better to not be seen at all, right? But if you are seen, or you think you might be, cover is going to both conceal you, usually, and it's going to prevent you from being engaged ballistically or through explosives or whatever, for the most part. Again, different kinds of cover is going to stop different levels of ballistics and all that stuff. The problem with Banpa, it's all wood, for the most part. So, far too often than not, I've been standing inside a shack in Banpa and see bullets just, puncture penetration holes just going all through the wood, just next to me, in front of me, whatever. I've been killed standing in a building, just absolutely getting wasted. So the fact of the matter is, unless you find something in Banpa that is actually cover and not just concealment, you're going to end up treating pretty much every building out there as concealment. So just keep that in mind. There are a couple buildings, one in particular that I'm thinking of, which we can go over once we get there. I've already heard sounds of gunfire in there. I don't see any friendlies on the map, so obviously we're going to assume that there are other PMCs in the area. Either way, nothing I have to worry about, especially since my objective is not personnel oriented at this time. Nevertheless, I need to be as cautious as I can be. Now, working Banpa as a location itself, we're going off of the terrain here, right? Obviously, you have two access points, primarily from India 1 and India 2. Banpa skirts the waterway here, and it mainly just centers itself on that main road that's going southwest to northeast. There is some elevation to the northwest of it here, and a little to the south of it. You have obviously AI riddled throughout. Some certain places in particular that people might not know about is a certain element to the north east over here, and then they're going to be all throughout the street and all throughout every significant location, on the piers, on the stilt houses, riddled throughout down this street here. Pretty much expect them at every given turn, any given corner. Now, given that you're dealing with mostly concealment and not cover within the city, you could attempt a overwatch position from the northwest side using that elevation, but just keep in mind that that elevation's only going to offer you a temporary. You might be able to use that as cover. Maybe that's the best piece right there, duck behind the lines, right? But that's something you're going to have to figure out for yourself. Gentlemen, what brings you to this nightmare?
Is it?
It is. Oh, don't tell me this is your first time.
No, we've been here before.
Okay, whoa. Not that it gets any better, because it doesn't.
Well, you extracting?
No, heck no, I'm about to go in.
Alright, let's go.
And here's an opportunity for us to demonstrate our approach. Do I want to come from this direction? Now they're working together. There's two of them, but that doesn't make you any more bulletproof or less resistant to violence, whatever. So in this case, I'm going to do a little bit of visual reconnaissance. They didn't get engaged over there, so it's safe to say there's no enemies over there. We're going to try our northern linear approach, just to do a wide sweep of the AO. We know that we are going to get a general, more or less a general sweep of the entire AO, rather than going straight down the center of it. Let's do a quick hasty here. That's not how you want to do a linear danger crossing every single time, but in this case I'm trying to continue through. I'm going to continue. I'm going to come around and try to, and they're already engaged. In some ways this actually is going to benefit me, given that my objective is not oriented to violence, but if I blitz, being as wise as I can, that sounds like a boss potentially, at the very least, of getting engaged heavily. They're very much engaged. So I'm going to utilize the edge of this berm here. I'm going to push further west. Try to see if I can't get a interlocking 90 degrees is our magic number, field of fire on these guys. 45 is okay if you have the line of sight on your targets. So we're going to continue. Notice the little pathways in this area. A lot of people might not know about this, but there's plenty of space to maneuver around here. Not a lot of cover, but you make your own. A lot of people don't utilize the sneak function on the walk. It is useful. As far as we know, the AI do notice sound to a degree. To what degree, I'm not entirely positive, but a little more caution can't hurt. Pulling up they have gone further south, east, from our position. Now, so we've covered our brief. See if we can't get a little better. We're going to peek a little bit here. Remember, when you do this, you are silhouetting all of your vitals into the open here. Obviously, you need to be able to see. Generally speaking, when you're trying to observe areas, it is better to glass an area at lower magnification and then increase for detail, because if you stay zoomed in your scope, you will get lost, guaranteed. Alright, well, I have not observed anyone yet. Generally speaking, they would have started making noise by now, but Another thing you need to understand about working Bonpa or any similar objective is they might be just 2 houses over and I'm not going to see it. There's one subject right there. I'm going to slide down. Careful on any incline in this game. I'm not here for a body count or anything like that, but keys are always a good idea to check for, especially given how bad the spawn rate on some of them can be. Also keep in mind that it also goes both ways when it comes to, I'm going to use this right here to peek. Also keep in mind, using sound can be background noise can be both to your advantage and disadvantage depending on what you're dealing with. In the case of AI, it could go against you regardless because they don't seem to care. They can still hear you no matter how much noise is going on in the background, but the helicopter goes over or you get some aggressive, some kind of, I guess you would call it cacophony, some disturbance going on that's loud enough, that will definitely be your opportunity to make a move, break contact, whatever you need. So you can do that, but also keep in mind it does go both ways. So, there are a couple of places where my objective, which states that the objective is underneath a house, that off the top of my head, I could think it could be, right? So, for that to work in my favor, I'm going to have to identify those places, the general location. I can think of one for sure is closer to the north side of town, so we'll start there first, and then we're just going to have to essentially, given the fact that we have limited information, we know that if it's underneath a house, obviously it's not going to be underneath a house you can't get underneath, right? So that will limit it a certain amount of options, but that doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily that straightforward one way or another. So like I said, when you're working this place, remember what's cover and remember what's not. Any of those wooden walls, whether, and there's fire off to my left, any of these wooden walls, whether they're part of a building or part of a freaking fence or whatever, it's not cover, it's not concealment. Don't even, just get the heck out of there. Basically, you gotta break contact and move from cover to cover. You just need to learn to identify what is and what isn't, and then utilize it that way. Too many people get wasted because they can't see the AI, they can't see their enemies, whatever it is, and then they're trying to use cover that's not cover. And for example, I'm using M855 right now. That's 62 grain green tip, right? If I put, I'm going to identify a location here. We'll try this, for example. Right here is great. It did go all the way through. Doesn't look like it necessarily impacted on the other side. So let's find something a little tighter, like this corner right here. Oh, possibly. Yeah. Yep. So that went, based on what we're looking at, if that's the same shot, well, it looks like it could be. It went straight downward all the way through, so let's double check that test again. Again, maintaining our situational awareness. Yeah, as you can see, multiple impacts going through a, 3 foot, 4 foot, sorry, 3 or 4 yards / meters, 5 yards distance, and went through the other side. You're pretty much, in fact, I could probably demonstrate. I'm not going to waste the ammunition, but I'll wager you I could dump a whole mag in pretty much. So, all the way through the other end, right? And keep in mind here. So, there's your 3. And they also went through the other side. So, this, what? Let's do a quick walk off here. Because that, from a distance of, let's say each set of steps is a yard. 6, 7, even 10 yards to be generous. 10 yards with 1, 2, 3 wooden walls, and it went through all 3 of them. So yeah, this is concealment. This isn't cover. Treat it as such. Don't even think about using the fence or anything else. All right. Situational awareness, as high as we can make it. Proceed to cover. Now this might be better if it's operating off of real-life principles. And actually, maybe we can test that right now. Alright, let's try another spot. One pen. 1 penetration. Alright, let's see if it's following the rules here. Engine block. It's a little too high over bore. It appears to be following the rules. So, or not. Oh my gosh, they're doing... Nuh-uh. Maybe? Okay. I'm not even... I can't even... If I'm gonna... Easy answer. Or simple answer, not an easy one. Simple answer. Bullets do strange things in cars. I hadn't planned on going over this, but we're doing this. They drove us to it, so we're doing this. Watch this. Right? Weird. You can see it right there, right? Okay, cool. So the glass appears to be at least marginally modeled correctly. Yeah, that's a penetration. So, parts of the vehicle that are not armor or not considered cover. Armor's not the right word, right? In this case, it doesn't look like it, but I wouldn't count on it. You can try the back axle. Not the best, but it's something. You can try the front axle because that's where the engine block will be. But as you can see, the bullets are still doing weird things. I'm curious if they modeled this too. Hard to emulate this, but we'll try it. Actually, this game's giving me the perfect opportunity. Let's try this little feature. Yeah. Engine block or the axle. Everywhere else, consider it concealment, not cover. Maybe you'll get lucky, but I would recommend against gambling. Especially in this instance. This also applies in real life, by the way. Alright, so, side diversion on that. We are looking for something underneath a house. Our expected location, I'm going to go ahead and break contact here. Keep in mind. Okay, here's our first location. For starters, there on occasion is a body located underneath here. In this case, I'm going to prone out. Nothing. Notice that locations like this do give you excellent sight lines, which can be the solution to dealing with this town, is take advantage of any kind of distance you have when you have it, and as always, get those quick kills as soon as possible so as to prevent the enemy from, I hate to say aggroing on you, but that obviously that's what we're talking about here. So, I have yet to locate anything that appears to be our target. Alright. Be thorough, so I don't have to spend the rest of the night going through who in the heck knows what. Alright, cool. As far as we can tell, at least this portion of the location. Right, cool. As far as we can tell, this portion of the location is good to go. There's nothing here unless they... Nope. Okay. So let's try to work it. Either we can work it left to right or just proximal, right? Or we can stay on this one side of the road and work it that way. That might even be easier. This is all up to you. Just keep in mind, gotta maintain your situational awareness that this is how they're gonna get you. And I will do my best not to jinx myself. There's a possibility. Okay, looks like we're good there. Also, when you're dealing with any kind of, really anything to do with vision, especially given that this is in fact a game, you're going to need to take the time, let your eyes adjust to what it is in the heck you're looking at. Because it takes time for your eyes to catch up to your brain, certainly, and vice versa. Certainly, in many instances, what matters is allowing your eyes to process the information you're throwing at it, rather than rushing. Twitch shooting is amazing and all that stuff, but you can't tell what in the heck it is you're looking at. It don't matter how fast you can shoot. Alright. And this is the warehouse, so we know that's not viable either. There's another one. Again, mobility is probably going to save you more than... Not that they can't hit you while you're moving, of course they can. But again, we are trying to... Once we come to the understanding, like we saw earlier, that even things you might think are invulnerable cover are not, or at least don't appear to be. That's... And looky here, we have found it, but we're going to have to make some room before we start fiddling around in our inventory. Again, something else that can definitely help you. As soon as you know you're going to take a moment, take the time to do a SILS halt, like we said, stop, look, listen, smell, and observe around. We haven't heard anything, we don't see anything that we're aware of. Now we can get into our freaking inventory. We're good to go. And that now determines our one task that we had to do here. I will complete a general sweep of the town for all other intents and purposes. Okay, cool. Now we have our contact. We don't know exactly where he is, but we know one thing only at least, right? There's not a lot of actual cover here. We had an approximate distance based on sound. Don't stick your head up if you don't have to. I'm going to continue to listen. And now we got it. And what did I say? I don't know that this is cover. Okay, we got one over there. And there we go. You glass down the scope. You're not paying attention. You're not. You notice how he engaged me. swept, kept moving, went through the bushes, and then continued onward. I was not able to track him visually. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to what your magnification is set to, and maintaining full situational awareness. You get too zoned in, well, that's what happens. So, when it comes to dealing with fighting in bound POW, you really need to consider your actions as deliberately as possible, because as you can see, one simple misstep is probably going to be fatal, and that applies to all tactics in general, but especially in a close quarters environment where you have so many opportunities to get engaged from multiple angles while not having any significant cover to utilize in that instance. So, like I said, in that situation, I got cut out in the open, and I did go for the nearest actual cover that I could find, but it wasn't obviously enough, and I got outmaneuvered. So, in that instance, you could go for cover, get engaged, or you could break cover, and in the past I've done that, and sometimes I've gotten shot in the back or whatever it is. So, in reality, again, take the time, absorb the environment around you, and make the decisions you make based off of that information. And if you find that you're not able to process the situation fast enough, you need to reconsider how you're approaching that situation so you can give yourself the most amount of time and information to make that decision when that moment comes. And of course, a lot of it's also going to come down to I guess you could say, I don't want to say repetition, but again, you're not going to get this right. There is no cheat code for this. Again, especially when we're talking about real life comparisons, there is no cheat code. And the best thing you can do in order to make sure you have the best fighting chance is to prepare correctly, consider all your options, train, for lack of a better expression, and then when you make that decision, don't hesitate.